Thank you for volunteering to be a judge for the Thompson School District Science Fair. An effective judge knows that this is an important experience in the life of every participant. Please make sure all participants remember the science fair is a positive experience in their life. Some notes on being an effective judge. For many students, you may be the first person who has ever interviewed them. They may not know how to start talking to you, so what we would like is for you to approach a student in a friendly and professional manner. Introduce yourself and then ask them to explain their project to you. This gives them an opening to start talking to you. Ask questions, but do not provide answers for the students. Some of the students have a tendency to repeat your suggestions to other judges. Then they skew the results because they might tell a judge something that you said instead of something that they discovered on their own. Make sure you are fair to all the participants. Spend about the same amount of time with each student and project. Carefully listen to the students' explanations of the project and find out how the project was done in an approachable and non-intimidating manner. This is what a kindergarten through third grade scoring sheet looks like. The top part of the sheet has a place for the student's name, project, and grade. This information should be on your judging sheet when you get them. There are times that you may need to add this information yourself, such as when we have extra kids for you to judge. The top right corner says lower elementary. This tells you that the scoring sheet is for the lower grades. For most science fairs, we will use this for kindergarten through third grades. The next part is a section for comments, right above the cut here line. This section is really important to fill out. This is how you provide feedback to the students about their project and their presentation. Please keep the comments positive. If there is something they could have done better, feel free to explain what you would have liked to see and why. For every improvement, please also provide something they did well. The sheet will be cut on the cut here line, and the students will only see the part above that line. This is the part where you will score the student's project. This section provides information that we want the projects to be evaluated on. Please be very consistent in your scoring between projects. You will use these scores to rank your placing for the students. After you finish judging, you'll come back with your team and discuss placements based on each person's ranking. These points are to help you evaluate the project on criteria important for the student to become successful scientists. Because each judge will award points differently, it's important that you work as a team to discuss ranking based on each judge's ranking, not just on raw points. So you will rank the students into like your first, second, and third place. And then when you get back to the team, don't talk about the number of points you gave each student because everybody rates things a little differently. What you really need to be talking about is how you ranked, like who you thought should be first, second, and third. And also remember that this part of the score sheet will be thrown away after the final ranking and no students will see these scores. So you can write any notes to yourself on the bottom half of the paper below the cut here line. The students won't see that. Points are awarded based on how well you feel the student meets the requirements listed on the score sheet. So if there's no evidence of meeting the requirement, you'll give them a 0. If there's some evidence that they meet the requirement, give them a 1. A 2 would be maybe if they met the requirement, but you feel like they could have done a little more. And then 3 would be if the requirement is met and done very well. So like the exceptional student. In kindergarten through third graders, we have 3 areas of focus. We want to focus on scientific thought, creative ability, and clarity. The problem or question has been clearly stated. The student should have a problem or a question that they are trying to answer, and it should be fairly specific. For example, will the color of my eggshell affect the taste of the egg? Procedure was easy to understand and was designed to answer the problem or question. The student should have created an experiment that will give them an answer to their question. We want them to think in terms of, I have a question, how can I create an experiment to find the answer? At this age, it's not unusual for the student to have an experiment that doesn't answer the question or any question at all. You can gently ask them if there's another way they could have answered that question with an experiment. Don't give them ideas of what they could do, but try and make them explore other ways that they could have answered that question if they didn't have a good procedure. Results are accurate and make sense. At this age, the student may not understand that many different things called variables can influence the result. It's good to ask them questions to make them think about what might have influenced the results and what they think would be a good way to control those variables. You may need to explain to them that a variable is something that can change their answers even though they don't expect it. For example, if a kid is trying to race cars down a track, they might not understand how hard they push the car can have an effect on the results. Please, again, don't tell them the answers, try and get them to think. An example of not making sense is if they were trying to see how fast the car will go, but then they give you a result in how far the car went. So the results might be accurate, but they don't make sense because they are answering the wrong question. Conclusions are based on an adequate number of trials. Most kids this age will only run their experiment once. We want them to start learning that having more trials will give them better results. You might ask them how many times they ran the trial, and if they say only once or twice, you could ask them if they think the results would be the same if they ran it more times and why or why not, because we want to try and get them thinking and understanding that more trials are better. So in the category of creative ability, the first thing you're going to look at is the project creative and original? Meaning, is it unique and attempted at an appropriate grade level? This one is hard with little kids. Many times they find their project online or in a book. It's an excellent way to start learning how to do science. Being at a grade level that they can understand is also very important at this age when they're trying to learn how to do a project. We want this to be the student's project and not the parent's project. It's okay for the parents to help, especially if there's something dangerous involved. We want the parent to help, but otherwise the student should be doing the project. Also, if there's something a student could have bought but made instead, even with extensive parent help, this should reflect positively on the student since they learned more from the project by making the solution than from buying it. For an example, one time we had a student who was doing a cheese experiment, and for the experiment, they needed a cheese block to shape the cheese. Instead of buying the block, the student's parent helped the student make a block. The student learned more from making the block than they would have done from buying the block. So we want them to be rewarded for that parent help, not penalized just because they actually learned more while doing their project. The display is visually appealing, color, graphs, pictures, etc., yet also clearly put together by the student. For these little kids, the kids can't always write very well. So the parents are allowed to type or write for the kid, but we want the kid to be telling the parents what to say. So it needs to sound like a kid actually thought it. We want to see the kids' work, not their parents' work. The display should be grade appropriate while also displaying the elements of their project. This is a fun one. Is there a reason for choosing the project other than entering the science fair? We want the students to have a genuine interest in the project they choose, and sometimes you'll get some really unique ideas about why the project is important to them. Okay, moving on to clarity. Student understands their project well enough to explain the purpose, procedure, and conclusions. The student should be able to tell you what they did, why they did it, and what the outcome was. The project display explains the project from start to finish. The display board should explain the major elements of the student's project. If the student isn't there, a spectator should be able to figure out what their experiment is about and what conclusions were reached. And the last one under clarity, the student speaks clearly, makes eye contact, and shows enthusiasm for their project. This may be the first time a student is having to explain something to a stranger, and that can be really hard for them. This is a chance for students to learn how to have conversations with people they don't know. If you come back year after year, you will be amazed to see how like these young kids, they were very shy, and then they'll have grown into these really warm conversationalists who can really explain their project. And this is a great stepping stone that you are helping them reach. Okay, so some important things for you to remember as you're judging. The questions address elements that are important for a successful science project, and these are the elements we want you to focus on when you're judging the student. Please use the questions and your scores to help you rank the students for second, third for awards as an individual. And then when you go back with the members of your judging team, you will discuss your rankings with them to come to an agreement on the overall ranking for the group of kids that you are giving placements to. Make sure you fill out the comments section on the top of the page so students can receive feedback on their project. Thank you so much for offering your time to judge these kids. You really are making a difference in their life, even though you may not see it. I've been doing science fair for, oh gosh, like 10 years now. We've been doing this, and the kids, it's really amazing to see the kids grow and come out of their shell and become many little scientists. They really, really start thinking about how to think like a scientist, and you are a very important part of that. So thank you very much.